Opinion: Trump's tariff runaround defies the courts and common sense. That's the headline of a new guest essay by Natasha Sarin, a Yale law professor who previously served in the Biden Treasury Department. She writes that effective tariff rates are about to change for the 45th time in 18 months, that's an average of once every 12 days. And they're set to ratchet up again next month if the president's recently announced 50% levy on certain Canadian goods takes effect. That includes hockey sticks, a product Sarin notes is not just a symbol of Canada but maybe a visual of what happens to prices. The tariffs don't apply to critical imports like oil or potash, but those could get more expensive if Canada retaliates. Sarin argues the president is resurrecting a misguided strategy that harms the economy and undercuts long-standing trade partnerships. The average rate for all trade partners is headed toward nearly 13% by fall, below last April's so-called Liberation Day levels but still damaging. She reminds us that tariffs are taxes paid on imported goods. Companies like Walmart pay them and typically pass part of the cost to consumers. At current levels, these taxes will slow economic growth as prices rise, people buy less, and cost the average American family around $1,100 annually. One reasonable question, she asks, why, in the months leading to the midterms, with affordability the top concern for most Americans and gas at $4 a gallon, is the administration fixated on policies that feed inflation? Another question on her mind: didn't the Supreme Court rule Trump couldn't do this? When the court struck down the administration's signature tariffs in February, its opinion wasn't ambiguous. The founders, it said, did not vest any part of the taxing power in the executive branch. That's why the Treasury Department has already refunded more than $80 billion in tariffs this fiscal year. True, the president has other ways to institute tariffs. If countries dump goods below cost, he can step in. But the 6 justices who found the executive had overreached were clear that those other approaches impose limits on duration, amount, and scope. Over the past few months, as many predicted, including Sarin herself and, more importantly, Justice Brett Kavanaugh in his February dissent, the administration has quickly leveraged those other authorities to reconstruct its global trade policy. First, it announced it would reinstate many of the disallowed tariffs using Section 122 of the Trade Act of 1974, which authorizes temporary tariffs to address fundamental international payments problems. The Court of International Trade struck them down in May, but the government appealed, keeping them alive. Sarin's essay makes the case that this runaround defies both the courts and common sense. Thanks for listening.